Before we cross into the unknown, leave a hello in the comments. Even the smallest signal can ripple across galaxies, guiding fellow wanderers to this tale. Let me know you're out there. A voice among the stars, listening with me beyond the veil. Engines roared as the last human warships breached the void, their hulls reflecting the dim starlight. I stood on the command bridge, eyes fixed on the holomap. Betrayal had cost us everything. Our colonies lost, our fleets shattered, humanity erased from history. Yet here we were, returning not with a plea, but with vengeance. The alien council had thought us gone, a forgotten myth. They had not prepared for the invisible fleet that now hung silently in the darkness, undetectable by any sensor or scanner. "Admiral, the Vanguard is in position," Lieutenant Corps reported. I nodded, feeling a cold thrill. Every pulse weapon, every plasma turret was loaded. They would see nothing, hear nothing, until it was too late. The first strike would be surgical, precise. Fear itself would be our weapon. Somewhere across the void, the alien bastions bristled with confidence. They did not know their doom was already floating among them, a ghostly promise of humanity's return. The alien fleets moved with arrogance, confident in their overwhelming numbers. I observed from the bridge as my invisible armada shadowed them, slipping between sensor grids like water through fingers. Every tactical readout was empty, every alert silent. "They can't see us," I whispered. The irony stung. They had betrayed our trust, our honor, and in doing so they had made themselves blind to the instruments of their own annihilation. Corps' fingers danced over the controls. First strike vectors locked. I felt the familiar hum of anticipation. Humanity's revenge made tangible in kinetic energy and plasma fire. Then the orders were given. Unleash. Explosions erupted across alien command ships as if the void itself had turned against them. Panic spread instantly, rippling through the enemy formations. Invisible, untraceable, humanity's wrath had returned, and it struck like a phantom storm. Reports flooded in. Entire squadrons obliterated, their systems overloaded before a single shot was detected. The aliens screamed into comm channels, their voices raw with disbelief. How is this possible?" one commander gasped. I leaned back, savoring the silence of our own fleet. The humans who survived the betrayal were no longer shadows. We were predators in the void. Fear, pure and unrelenting, now coursed through the veins of our enemies. "Prepare the secondary wave," I ordered. The invisible ships maneuvered like living predators, striking weak points we had cataloged in exile. Their most advanced defenses melted as though they were glass under flame. The Council's arrogance was unraveling. The aliens were frantically trying to coordinate, but every signal they sent was already doomed. Humanity's revenge was not only coming, it had already arrived. Engines hummed like distant thunder as the main fleet adjusted formation, invisible yet omnipresent. I watched the holomap. Every alien capital ship lit up with damage reports, but none could trace the cause. My crew moved with clinical precision, each strike calculated. There was artistry in annihilation, a grim ballet we had perfected in secret while the galaxy believed us extinct. "Admiral, the Council flagship is isolated," Corps reported, voice tight with excitement. "Shall we engage?" I smiled beneath the harsh bridge lights. Yes, but let them feel it. Let the entire Armada witness what happens when humanity returns from the shadows. And then, like phantoms emerging from the void, we struck. The flagship erupted, throwing debris into the endless black. Panic became chaos. Chaos became surrender. Humanity's unseen hand was the only law in this battlefield. Across the expanse, alien fleets faltered, retreating in disarray. Yet our Armada held the perfect formation. Engines whispered, cloaking fields shimmered, and each invisible vessel was a sword poised to strike again. I felt the weight of every death we had endured, every betrayal, fueling the relentless efficiency of our strike. Humanity's return was not subtle. It was final. Secondary volleys complete, Admiral. Entire sectors neutralized, Kor said, awe in his tone. The void itself seemed to quake under our presence, though none could see us. I allowed myself a brief moment of grim satisfaction. We had vanished, we had suffered, but we had returned more terrible than legend. From the shadows of betrayal, humanity had risen, and the galaxy would remember our name. Engines hummed like a heartbeat across the invisible Armada. Alien fleets attempted to regroup, sending fleets in disorganized counterattacks, yet every strike passed through space. I stood on the bridge, sensing the weight of centuries of betrayal as if it pressed on my chest. They thought the galaxy had forgotten us. They were wrong. Every sensor reading showed nothing, yet everywhere they looked, death awaited. Targets on the move, Admiral, Kor noted. They're attempting evasive maneuvers. I nodded, steeling myself. Let them run. Every step leads them closer to the traps we've set. The invisible fleet split, flowing like liquid shadows around asteroid belts and debris fields. Then, in perfect synchronization, our weapons struck. Alien cruisers disintegrated before a single countermeasure could fire. Across the void, the aliens realized humanity was no longer a force to be measured. They were a ghost that hunted without mercy. A ripple of terror passed through the alien network. Comms crackled with fear, officers screaming in disbelief. "Impossible! Our scanners show nothing," one cried. I allowed myself a faint smile. Years of exile had taught us patience, precision, and stealth. The Council's strongest defenses were now vulnerable because they had forgotten how to fear. I issued new orders. Deploy long-range disruptors. Hit their navigation grids. Invisible pulses radiated, jamming engines and sending panic cascading through enemy ranks. Starbases erupted in sparks and fire, their automated defenses confused and overwhelmed. Humanity's wrath was surgical, invisible, and unstoppable, and as I watched, I knew the first true battle of our return had only just begun. The Armada moved like phantoms through asteroid fields, exploiting every shadow. Alien commanders struggled to coordinate, sending blind squadrons into ambushes they could not perceive. I felt the thrill of strategy, the art of war elevated by stealth, each ship a hidden blade ready to strike. Humanity's vengeance had become more than retribution. It was an execution of precision and terror. Kor's voice cut through the bridge hum. "Admiral, enemy reinforcements detected. They're moving faster than predicted." I narrowed my eyes. "Let them approach. They will walk into the storm." Invisible destroyers slipped behind their fleet, striking engines and weapons bays. Alien ships fell apart mid-maneuver, confusion spiraling into chaos. Humanity, once betrayed, now dictated the pace of every engagement, every death, and every panic-stricken retreat. Across the void, the Alien Council's flagship trembled under relentless invisible strikes. Orders were shouted, but the fleet could not respond to what it could not see. Fear spread faster than fire. Even the most hardened commanders doubted reality. I observed the chaos from my bridge, a cold weight of satisfaction pressing down. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy remembered. "Admiral, we've neutralized 3 major sectors," Kor said, voice tight with triumph. I turned to the holomap. Lights flickered across alien territories, each representing a target now incapacitated. "Prepare the next phase. Let them learn desperation." Cloaked frigates streamed toward the Council's last fortified zones. Invisible missiles arced silently, tearing through shields. Humanity was no longer the hunted. Humanity was the hunter, and fear itself was our ally. Engines whispered as the fleet advanced on the Council's inner ring. Alien squadrons scrambled, firing blindly into voids that contained no threat. Every command channel carried panic, and every fleet movement was uncertain. I allowed myself a quiet moment to remember those we had lost, fallen to betrayal, erased by false promises. And now their ghosts marched with us, invisible and unrelenting. Secondary volleys are locked. Core reported. I inhaled, savoring the anticipation. Then, with a single command, the invisible fleet struck the Council's core defenses. Explosions blossomed like silent novas, destroying command ships, turrets, and supply lines. Across the void, alien fleets reeled in horror. Humanity had returned from the grave, cloaked and unstoppable, and the galaxy would never forget the fury of the betrayed. Masked by the void's silence. The alien council was learning. Sensor arrays flickered, pulse disruptors fired blindly, but the invisible fleet adapted instantly. I watched from the command bridge, noting each pattern, predicting every desperate move. Humanity had waited in exile for this moment. Every maneuver we executed now was sharpened by years of preparation, every strike a lesson in vengeance perfected. Core's fingers danced over the controls. They're attempting coordinated counterattacks in Quadrant 7. I nodded. Feed them the illusion of weakness. Lure them. Invisible frigates flanked the attackers, crippling engines before plasma volleys could reach their targets. Panic spread like wildfire. Alien officers shouted commands into empty voids. Humanity's stealth was no longer a secret. It was a nightmare that no sensor could pierce. The Council deployed advanced, cloaked drones, hoping to match our stealth. I leaned over the holographic display. Every algorithm they had studied failed. Our ships moved as if alive, anticipating strikes, exploiting weaknesses before they existed. Humanity had vanished once, but we had returned as ghosts far deadlier than memory alone could conjure. Admiral, the drones are confused. They're firing at each other, Core said, astonished. I allowed a grim smile. Good. Let them tear themselves apart. The void belongs to those who master it. Invisible missiles ripped through their ranks, engines overloaded, shields collapsed. Every alien command thought itself safe, every formation thought itself organized, until it was shredded in silence. Engines hummed like a living heartbeat as we encircled key alien fortresses. The Council's fleets tried to retreat, but our phantoms anticipated every jump point, cutting off escape routes. I stood at the bridge, feeling centuries of betrayal as fuel for the mission. Humanity had vanished, but we returned smarter, faster, and invisible. Every alien that survived this day would carry the terror of the unseen. Engage siege protocols, I ordered. Cloaked artillery unleashed silent energy waves, tearing through shields before automated defenses could react. Alien warships erupted, debris scattering in silent arcs. Communication systems crashed. Command nodes went dark. Fear became panic. Panic became surrender. Humanity, once erased, now dictated the rhythm of life and death across sectors they had once considered theirs. Across the void, the Council's flagship convulsed under invisible strikes. Alarms blared, sensors overloaded, officers screamed into comms that were already dead. I allowed myself a brief moment of satisfaction. Humanity's absence had been a lesson in patience. Our return was a demonstration in terror. Engines hummed quietly, cloaking fields flickering over every vessel. Admiral, core defenses are failing, Core reported. They can't respond to invisible targets. I leaned forward. Prepare final wave. Let them see nothing, feel nothing, until the collapse is complete. Invisible strikes carved open their fleets with surgical precision. Capital ships erupted in silent novas. Panic turned to chaos. Chaos to hopelessness. Humanity's wrath was not just physical. It was psychological, a ghostly reminder that betrayal carries a price paid in fire and fear. The Armada converged on the Council's last sectors. Alien fleets tried desperate maneuvers, but every route was anticipated. The void had become ours, invisible, unstoppable, untouchable. I watched from the command bridge, every holomap displaying the collapse of their once mighty dominion. Humanity's return was not mercy. It was judgment. Prepare for orbital decimation, I ordered. Cloaked bombardments struck silently, ripping apart fortresses, supply lines, and command stations. Alien commanders screamed in disbelief, their networks collapsing into chaos. The galaxy had forgotten us, but we had remembered every betrayal, every death. Humanity's invisible fleet was no longer an apparition. It was dominion, and the Council's arrogance had become its tomb. Engines whispered across the void as alien engineers scrambled to understand the invisible threat. New sensor arrays flickered to life, adaptive shields pulsed, and decoy drones filled the dark. I studied the holographic displays, analyzing every pattern. Humanity had returned as a ghost, but ghosts could be hunted, if the prey was predictable. "Admiral, they're testing new countermeasures," Core warned. I nodded. "Then we evolve faster." Cloaked frigates adjusted course, weaving through debris fields to avoid predicted detection zones. Every strike became more precise, every formation more fluid. Invisible, lethal, and unpredictable. Humanity remained untouchable, even as the Council desperately tried to rewrite the rules of engagement. Alien fleets moved cautiously, firing preemptively at shadows they could not perceive. I felt the thrill of anticipation. The battlefield had become a chessboard in 3 dimensions. Every sensor pulse, every tactical maneuver fed our strategy. Humanity had vanished once, but now we controlled the very perception of the enemy. "Admiral, they're funneling into a canyon of debris," Core reported. "Shall we strike?" I smiled grimly. "Perfect." Cloaked ships swept silently through the narrow expanse, unleashing plasma volleys that shredded the lead squadrons. Panic cascaded backward. Alien formations collapsed into confusion. Invisible weapons had become both executioner and message. The hunted would never see the predator coming. Engines hummed like a living organism as invisible destroyers advanced into enemy territory. Reports streamed in. Shields collapsing, engines failing, and communications dead. I let the satisfaction settle briefly. Centuries of betrayal had refined humanity into this perfect, unseen force. "Prepare orbital insertion," I ordered. Cloaked assault ships flitted around fortified installations, striking weak points before automated turrets could react. Alien fleets tried to regroup, only to be funneled into invisible traps. Fear spread faster than any weapon. The Council had learned too late that invisibility was not merely concealment. It was dominion. The Council, desperate, launched a concentrated counterstrike. Adaptive drones flitted through sensor-dead zones, attempting to locate our invisible fleet. I felt a flicker of caution. For the first time, we were being hunted. But the Armada had evolved. Every strike, every movement anticipated potential detection. Humanity's ghost had become a predator's nightmare. "Deploy adaptive cloaking," I commanded. Invisible shields shimmered, bending energy pulses around ships. Alien attacks fizzled into the void, leaving their squadrons exposed. Then, with precise coordination, human strike teams targeted power cores. Explosions blossomed silently across enemy vessels. The Council realized they were no longer hunters. They were prey in a war they had initiated. The invisible Armada penetrated the last defensive sectors. Alien fleets moved frantically, unsure where to strike or how to survive. I watched their panic spread like wildfire. Years of planning, exile, and betrayal had culminated in this perfect moment. Humanity was not merely returned. We were untouchable, everywhere and nowhere. "Secondary volleys ready, Admiral," Core said. I nodded. "Begin the silent conquest." Cloaked missiles rained on command hubs, orbital stations, and warships. Explosions tore through alien fleets that could not see their assailants. In the void, silence reigned, punctuated only by the destruction of arrogance. Humanity's invisible return had become absolute, and fear itself was our weapon. Engines hummed like coiled steel as alien engineers accelerated efforts to adapt. New, cloaked drones and advanced scanners emerged, probing where invisible ships might be. I studied the readings carefully. Every adjustment they made was predictable, and every predictable move was an opportunity. Humanity's patience had turned betrayal into advantage. "Admiral, they're concentrating reinforcements on the Solstice sector," Core reported. I nodded. "Let them come. We'll turn their strength into their undoing." Invisible destroyers repositioned, forming phantom pincer movements. Alien fleets, confident yet blind, rushed into ambushes that no sensor could detect. The Council's desperation only sharpened our advantage. Humanity remained the unseen hand shaping the battlefield. The invisible fleet struck with surgical precision. Alien capital ships erupted mid-maneuver, their shields overloaded before they could react. I felt centuries of betrayal crystallize into pure, controlled fury. The galaxy had forgotten us, but it would remember our wrath. "Prepare synchronized volleys," I ordered. Cloaked frigates fired plasma arcs into the enemy's formation, while stealth bombers disabled jump gates. Panic swept through alien fleets like wildfire. Communication channels became chaos. Humanity's return was no longer a rumor, no longer a myth. It was a force reshaping the void itself. Engines hummed as fleets attempted to flee. Alien commanders calculated jump coordinates frantically, unaware that invisible human ships shadowed every move. I felt a thrill of anticipation. The void itself seemed to bend around our tactics. Humanity had vanished once, but now we were everywhere and nowhere at once. "Engage decoy protocol," I commanded. Phantom vessels feigned weakness, luring enemy squadrons into open fire. Then, simultaneous strikes tore through engines, shields, and weapon systems. Alien fleets collapsed inward, trapped by the unseen. Fear became instinct. Instinct became paralysis. The Council had learned too late. Humanity's vengeance was a tidal wave they could not perceive until it broke upon them. Across the void, the Council convened in panic. Every command was a gamble. Every sensor reading, a guess. I watched via intercepted comm transmissions, a grim satisfaction settling over me. They had betrayed us, erased us, and now they were blind to the annihilation they had invited. "Admiral, their flagship is isolated," Core reported. "Shall we strike?" I smiled faintly. "Yes, but let the fear linger. Let them watch everything collapse without understanding how or why." Cloaked destroyers and stealth bombers moved into position. Explosions erupted silently, cutting power grids and command relays. The Council's arrogance was finally paying its price, punishment delivered invisibly, relentlessly, perfectly. The invisible Armada advanced into the inner sectors. Alien fleets attempted desperate maneuvers, but each ship moved into preset traps. Humanity's return was no longer stealth for concealment. It was stealth as domination. Every strike was precise, every move anticipated, every escape route closed. "Orbital strikes ready," Core announced. I gave the command. Cloaked bombardments ripped apart defensive structures and key installations. Alien officers screamed in disbelief, realizing too late that they were under siege by forces they could not see. The galaxy had erased us once, but humanity had returned as a ghostly hammer, invisible, unstoppable, and unrelenting. Engines hummed like whispers across the void as our invisible fleet advanced deeper into alien sectors. Every pulse, every wave of energy was anticipated, calculated, and countered. Alien fleets scrambled to deploy new sensor nets, yet nothing pierced our cloaks. Humanity had returned as a ghost, a silent judgment in motion. "Admiral, outer defenses are disintegrating faster than predicted," Core reported. I narrowed my eyes. "Good. Keep them blind. Keep them afraid." Invisible frigates and stealth bombers slipped through asteroid fields and debris clouds, striking weapon nodes and power cores. Alien fleets reeled, communication networks jammed, panic cascading in waves. Humanity's wrath had become a force that no technology could intercept, no fleet could outrun. Alien forces adapted quickly, deploying cloaked hunter drones. I studied the readings, each pattern predictable, each move exploitable. The void became a chessboard. Invisible ships danced between ambushes, feints, and counter-feints. Humanity's patience had transformed betrayal into artful vengeance. "Admiral, drones are approaching Sector Theta," Kor warned. I smirked. "Feed them illusion. Let them chase ghosts." Phantom strikes disabled drone relays and energy grids, sending automated systems into catastrophic feedback loops. Alien fleets screamed into comms, realizing too late that the hunters had become omnipresent shadows, stalking every move with precision born from centuries of exile. As our fleet unleashed simultaneous volleys across multiple sectors, alien warships erupted, shields collapsing silently, engines overloading mid-maneuver. I felt centuries of rage and loss crystallize into pure, unstoppable force. Humanity had vanished, but now we returned as instruments of relentless retribution. "Secondary volleys synchronized," I ordered. Cloaked destroyers and stealth bombers ripped through strategic installations. Alien officers shouted into voids that offered no answer. Panic became chaos. Chaos became paralysis. The invisible Armada dictated the battlefield, reshaping the galaxy's perception. We were ghosts, predators, and executioners all at once. The Alien Council convened frantically, trying to coordinate scattered fleets. Every move felt reactive, desperate, wrong. I observed silently, feeling the cold thrill of inevitability. The betrayal that had erased humanity now fueled the precision and cruelty of our vengeance. "Admiral, their flagship is vulnerable," Kor said. I nodded. "Target it. Make them feel the collapse of their command." Cloaked ships carved through the void, striking engines, weapons bays, and command centers. Explosions tore through fleets, invisible and unstoppable. Fear, not fire, now guided every retreat. Humanity was not merely back. We were Dominion-made flesh, and terror our signature. Engines whispered as the invisible Armada approached the final defensive sectors. Alien fleets moved erratically, unsure where to strike or hide. Humanity's patience, stealth, and vengeance had become a perfect storm. Every strike was surgical, every movement preordained, every escape route closed. "Orbital decimation ready," Kor announced. I gave the order. Cloaked bombardments tore apart command hubs, orbital platforms, and supply lines. Alien officers screamed in disbelief, witnessing destruction they could not trace or anticipate. Humanity had vanished once, but returned now as a ghostly hammer, invisible, unstoppable, and unrelenting. The galaxy would remember the day the betrayed became the hunters. The invisible Armada entered the heart of alien territory. Command stations flickered with alarms, but no sensor detected our presence. I felt centuries of betrayal sharpen into a strategy. Humanity had vanished, but our return was calculated, surgical, inevitable. "Admiral, the inner sectors are lightly defended," Kor reported. I leaned forward. "Perfect. Let them think they are safe. Then strike." Cloaked frigates threaded through debris fields, striking orbital stations before automated defenses could react. Panic rippled through alien fleets, fear blossoming into chaos. The hunted had become the invisible predator, and the galaxy itself trembled. Alien fleets attempted to consolidate around central command nodes. I studied their movements, predicting every desperate maneuver. Our Armada, unseen and precise, moved like water through fractured ice. Every misstep they made became an opportunity. Every panic-driven order another trap. "Admiral, they're funneling forces into the Meridian Rift," Kor noted. I nodded. "Excellent. Let the rift become their tomb." Invisible strike teams flanked approaching ships, tearing engines and weapons apart. Alien commanders realized too late that every sector had become a kill zone. Humanity's vengeance was a ghost sweeping through the void. Inescapable, omnipresent. Engines hummed as adaptive alien drones finally engaged our cloaked vessels. For the first time, a shadowed adversary fought back. I felt a flicker of tension, the thrill of genuine challenge. Humanity had trained for this moment, but the unknown still carried weight. "Deploy counter-cloaks," I ordered. Ships shimmered briefly, bending energy pulses around hulls. Invisible volleys struck the drones, ripping them apart mid-maneuver. Alien forces faltered, unable to track the unseen. Fear now combined with confusion, feeding every tactical advantage. Humanity's ghost had become both weapon and shield, a terror that no sensor could anticipate. As alien fleets tried desperate retreats, every jump point, every hyperspace corridor had been predicted, ambushed, and neutralized. I felt the weight of centuries of betrayal and the satisfaction of perfect execution. Humanity had vanished once, but now we commanded space itself. Secondary strikes deployed, Core said. Invisible bombardments tore through orbital stations, supply lines, and communication hubs. Alien officers screamed into comms that offered no response. Fear became instinct. Instinct became paralysis. Every surviving fleet realized too late that the galaxy's invisible ghosts were more than myth. They were unstoppable predators hunting in silence. Engines hummed as the fleet advanced toward the Council's last fortified sectors. Alien forces scrambled, every move desperate, every tactic frantic. Humanity's stealth had evolved into domination, every strike precise, every retreat impossible. I sensed the tide turning irrevocably. The galaxy would never forget this return. Orbital decimation complete, Core reported. I exhaled slowly. Cloaked bombardments had shattered fortresses, crippled fleets, and silenced command networks. Alien fleets reeled, unsure where to strike, unable to respond. Humanity had vanished once, betrayed by those they trusted, but now we had returned as ghosts, invisible and unstoppable, reshaping the galaxy in our image. The Act II ascent was complete, and fear itself had become our ally, as alien fleets scrambled to deploy untested countermeasures. Adaptive cloaks, sensor jammers, and decoy swarms flitted through the void, but every move was anticipated. I studied the holomap carefully. Humanity's invisible advantage had grown into mastery. Betrayal had forged us into hunters the galaxy would never forget. "Admiral, they're concentrating experimental weapons in Sector Delta," Core reported. I nodded. "Good. Let them wield them. Then we turn their own technology against them." Cloaked frigates repositioned, weaving through asteroid fields while invisible volleys struck engine cores and weapon arrays. Alien fleets panicked, realizing too late that the unseen predator was everywhere at once. Engines hummed like coiled steel as invisible strike teams approached alien fortresses. Shields flared in reaction, but human tactics anticipated every pulse, every arc. I felt centuries of suppressed rage coalesce into precision, each maneuver a reminder of the cost of betrayal. "Admiral, outer defenses are compromised," Core reported. I allowed a faint smile. "Advance silently. Let them feel the collapse before they see it." Cloaked bombers tore through energy nodes, power conduits, and weapon platforms. Alien fleets reeled as panic and confusion spread like wildfire. Humanity's ghost had become both executioner and omen. Engines whispered as our fleet moved into the Meridian Rift, a choke point the Council believed safe. I studied alien formations, predicting every misstep. Every maneuver they made fed our invisible strategy. Humanity had vanished once, but now we dictated the rhythm of the void. "Prepare synchronized volleys," I ordered. Cloaked destroyers struck in perfect unison, ripping through engines, shields, and weapon bays. Alien fleets faltered mid-maneuver, commanders shouting orders into space. Fear, confusion, and destruction combined into a perfect storm. Humanity's vengeance was no longer stealth. It was silent domination. The Council's flagship convulsed under repeated invisible strikes. Commanders shouted into comm channels that offered no answer. I felt centuries of betrayal solidify into satisfaction. Every miscalculation, every death we had endured, had led to this precise moment. "Admiral, core sectors are destabilized," Core said. I nodded. "Prepare final wave. Let them watch their empire collapse without comprehension. Cloaked frigates and stealth bombers struck simultaneously, dismantling command nodes, orbital platforms, and defensive arrays. Alien fleets faltered, paralyzed by terror. Humanity's ghostly return had become undeniable. The Council's arrogance was its undoing. The Armada advanced toward the final sectors of resistance. Alien forces moved desperately, trying to mount countermeasures against invisible opponents. Humanity's patience, stealth, and wrath had merged into a perfect weapon. Every strike was precise, every retreat preordained, every enemy trapped in calculated panic. "Orbital decimation complete," Core announced. I allowed myself a brief exhale. Cloaked bombardments had obliterated fleets, command centers, and supply lines. Alien officers screamed into voids that held no reply. Humanity had vanished, betrayed, erased. But now we had returned as ghosts, unstoppable and invisible. Fear itself had become our dominion. Act 2 was complete, and the stage for the galaxy's reckoning was set. Engines hummed as the Alien Council, cornered and desperate, unleashed untested weapon systems. Doomsday cannons, hypervelocity disruptors, and cloaked hunter squadrons flitted through the void. I studied the readings calmly. Every desperate move was predictable, every gambit exploitable. Humanity had returned not just to fight, but to dominate. "Admiral, they've deployed experimental drones near the Meridian Rift," Core said. I smirked. "Good, let them test their toys." Cloaked destroyers and bombers evaded every strike, turning alien counters into traps of their own making. Fleets collapsed mid-maneuver, panic cascading like wildfire. The galaxy had once erased us, but humanity had returned as a silent, unseen storm. As our invisible armada adjusted formation, alien fleets scrambled to respond, deploying cloaked ambushes and decoy warships. Every prediction we had made in exile now became a battlefield advantage. Humanity was no longer reactive. We were inevitable. "Admiral, outer fleets are funneling into the Vortex Canyon," Core reported. I nodded. "Perfect, let them march into ghosts." Cloaked frigates flanked blindly, striking engines and weapons systems with surgical precision. Alien officers screamed in confusion as fleets collided with invisible traps. Fear, chaos, and annihilation became indistinguishable. Humanity's vengeance was no longer silent. It was absolute. Engines hummed as stealth bombers threaded through asteroid fields, striking isolated command hubs. Alien fleets tried desperate retreats, but every jump point had been anticipated. I felt the weight of centuries of betrayal solidify into execution. The invisible strike was flawless, unavoidable, and terrifying. "Secondary volleys ready," Core said. I gave the command. Explosions erupted silently across enemy formations, ripping engines and shields apart mid-maneuver. Alien officers shouted into dead channels, realizing they were under assault from forces they could not see. Humanity had vanished, but now we hunted like ghosts, unstoppable and untouchable. The Alien Council convulsed under repeated phantom strikes. Every command was reactive, miscalculated, and meaningless. I watched silently, savoring centuries of suppressed anger crystallizing into precise vengeance. Humanity had vanished, but our return was perfected into strategy, speed, and terror. "Admiral, the flagship's core is exposed," Core reported. I leaned forward. "Deploy final wave. Let them watch everything crumble without understanding why." Cloaked frigates and bombers tore through command hubs, orbital stations, and supply lines. Alien fleets faltered, paralyzed by invisible terror. Humanity's ghost had become the arbiter of the galaxy, and no fleet could resist its dominion. The invisible armada approached the final strongholds. Alien forces moved frantically, scrambling to mount countermeasures, but every step fell into preset traps. Humanity's stealth had evolved from concealment into dominion. Every strike was precise, every enemy movement anticipated, every escape route blocked. "Orbital annihilation complete," Kor said. Cloaked bombardments erupted across remaining alien installations, silencing fleets, command networks, and defensive arrays. Alien officers screamed in disbelief, trapped by what they could not see. Humanity had vanished, betrayed, erased, but we returned as ghosts, unstoppable, invisible, and unrelenting. Fear itself had become our weapon. Act 2 had ended. Act 3, the galaxy's reckoning, was about to begin. As alien superweapons activated deep within the void, planetary annihilators, gravity warheads, and plasma arrays glimmered with lethal potential. I studied the holographic displays carefully. Humanity had prepared for this. Every system was ready. Every counterstrike calculated. The betrayal that had erased us would now fuel the galaxy's most devastating revenge. Admiral, they're targeting Meridian and Solstice sectors, Kor warned. I nodded grimly. Let them fire. Every shot is a map of their arrogance. Cloaked frigates maneuvered through gravitational turbulence, evading beams and pulses invisible to enemy targeting. Every attack became an opportunity. Every superweapon unleashed only tightened the trap we had set. Humanity had returned, and nothing could withstand our invisible wrath. Engines hummed as our invisible fleet advanced, weaving between the alien superweapons' fire. Alien commanders shouted orders into dead channels, panic spreading faster than energy beams. Humanity had vanished once, but now we were everywhere at once. Ghosts no sensor could perceive, strikes no defense could repel. Prepare synchronized volleys, I ordered. Cloaked destroyers and stealth bombers tore through power conduits, navigation arrays, and weapon hubs. Alien superweapons overloaded, detonating harmlessly in the void, while panic cascaded through every fleet. Humanity's ghost was no longer legend. It was inevitability, shaping every outcome with invisible precision, as alien formations tried to consolidate against invisible threats. Every fleet movement was predicted, every maneuver anticipated. The Council's desperation made their actions reckless. The void itself seemed to bend around our invisible armada. Humanity's stealth was no longer concealment. It was domination incarnate. Admiral, the flagship is isolated in the gravitas belt, Kor reported. I nodded. Deploy final wave. Let them see nothing until collapse is absolute. Cloaked frigates struck with surgical precision, engines and shields exploding silently. Alien fleets faltered mid-maneuver, officers shouting commands into voids that offered no answer. Fear, confusion, and annihilation had become indistinguishable. Humanity's vengeance was complete and invisible. Engines hummed like a distant storm as the Council prepared its final defenses. Planetary shields pulsed, plasma walls shimmered, and automated fleets moved to intercept unseen attackers. I allowed myself a moment to savor centuries of betrayal distilled into this ultimate confrontation. Humanity had vanished, but now we were gods of the void. Admiral, all sectors aligned for engagement, Kor said. I gave the command. Cloaked bombardments and stealth torpedoes ripped through superweapons and capital ships simultaneously. Alien fleets faltered, their last-ditch defenses overwhelmed by invisible precision. The Council realized too late that they were prey in a galaxy they thought conquered. Humanity's ghostly wrath was absolute, unstoppable, and final. The Armada advanced on the last sectors of resistance. Alien forces moved frantically, deploying experimental defenses that failed instantly against unseen attacks. Humanity's vengeance had become perfected. Every strike, every maneuver, and every collapse orchestrated in invisible harmony. Orbital and core annihilation complete, Kor announced. Cloaked bombardments and stealth strikes silenced every remaining fleet, command hub, and defense array. Alien officers screamed into voids that offered no reply. Humanity had vanished, betrayed, erased, but we returned as ghosts, invisible and unstoppable. Fear had become our dominion, and the galaxy's reckoning was complete. Act the third, the final storm, was about to begin. The invisible Armada approached the Council's central nexus. Every remaining alien fleet was isolated, stripped of defenses by precise, unseen strikes. I felt centuries of betrayal coalesce into one moment of absolute clarity. Humanity had returned to deliver judgment, and nothing would stop us. "Admiral, flagship coordinates locked," Core reported. I leaned forward. "Engage stealth approach. Let them feel the collapse before they see us." Cloaked destroyers threaded asteroid belts and debris fields, slipping past sensor arrays. Every strike had been prepared, every ambush anticipated. The Council's arrogance was about to face the consequences it had long ignored. Alien commanders shouted into dead comm channels, desperately trying to organize remaining squadrons. Every attempt at coordination failed. Our invisible fleet had enveloped their central nexus, cutting off retreat routes and isolating superweapons. Fear spread faster than their firepower could reach. "Admiral, outer rings are collapsing," Core said. I smiled grimly. "Good. Proceed with final engagement." Cloaked bombers and frigates moved into precise formations, striking shields, engines, and weapon systems simultaneously. Alien fleets erupted in silent chaos. Humanity's ghostly return was no longer just stealth, it was omnipresence, and terror became the Council's only companion. Engines hummed as invisible ships began surgical strikes on the Council's central installations. Plasma arcs and energy pulses tore through command hubs, yet no ship revealed its location. I felt centuries of suppressed rage crystallize into tactical perfection. Humanity's return was not just vengeance, it was precision incarnate. "Admiral, superweapons destabilized," Core reported. I nodded. "Good. Push deeper." Cloaked frigates and stealth bombers infiltrated defensive zones, dismantling communication networks and supply lines. Alien commanders shouted into voids that offered no reply. The Council's last strongholds trembled under invisible assault. Humanity's wrath was not only present, it was inescapable. The final Council fleets moved erratically, trying to mount defenses against unseen assailants. Every formation, every maneuver fell into preset traps. Humanity's patience, stealth, and vengeance had merged into an unstoppable instrument of justice. "Orbital and core systems targeted," Core announced. Cloaked bombardments ripped through command nodes, warships, and orbital platforms. Alien officers screamed into voids with no answer. Humanity, once erased and betrayed, had returned as ghosts, perfectly invisible, merciless, and undeniable. The Council was finally seeing the price of its arrogance. Engines hummed softly as the invisible Armada pressed into the heart of the Council's command nexus. Every fleet movement had been predicted, every superweapon neutralized. Humanity had vanished once, but now we returned as predators, orchestrating annihilation with ghostly precision. "Admiral, the final strike formations are ready," Core said. I exhaled, voice steady. "Execute. Let them witness the reckoning they invited." Cloaked frigates and bombers unleashed simultaneous volleys, destroying command centers, orbital stations, and remaining defenses. Alien fleets were paralyzed, leadership shattered, and the Council's empire was crumbling. Humanity's vengeance had arrived unseen, and it was absolute. The invisible Armada breached the Council's inner sanctum. Command hubs, superweapons, and fortified stations had all fallen, leaving only the core of the alien empire. I felt centuries of betrayal sharpen into one final purpose: deliver humanity's judgment. "Admiral, core defenses are minimal," Core reported. I nodded. "Advance stealth approach. Let them realize the end only at the last second." Cloaked destroyers maneuvered through debris and gravitational eddies, striking power conduits and command arrays. Alien officers shouted into voids that offered no response. The Empire trembled beneath invisible precision. Engines hummed as the Council's leadership attempted last-minute coordination. Every fleet movement faltered, every calculation failed. Our invisible fleet had become inevitability incarnate. Humanity had vanished, but now returned to decide the fate of the galaxy. "Admiral, flagship shields are critical," Core reported. I gave a calm nod. "Deploy final volleys." Cloaked bombers tore through shields, engines, and weapons arrays simultaneously. Alien officers screamed into dead channels. Panic, confusion, and annihilation consumed the Council. Humanity's ghostly vengeance had become absolute, final, inescapable, and complete. Engines whispered as invisible ships circled the remnants of the Empire. Every fleet had been neutralized, every stronghold dismantled. I felt centuries of pain, betrayal, and exile transform into a quiet triumph. Humanity had returned, and nothing would ever erase us again. "Admiral, all sectors secured," Core said. I exhaled slowly. Cloaked frigates patrolled silent voids, ensuring no hidden fleets remained. Alien officers were either captured, fleeing, or annihilated. Humanity's vengeance had been precise, surgical, and invisible. The galaxy now knew what betrayal truly cost. The fleet regrouped, silent phantoms patrolling conquered space. Reports of surviving alien factions trickled in, confused, fearful, broken. I allowed myself a rare smile. Humanity had returned not just to fight, but to claim dominion, unchallenged and invisible. "Admiral, we've neutralized all major threats," Core reported. I looked at the holomap, dots representing once mighty fleets now gone. "Prepare for galaxy-wide stabilization," I said. Invisible ships maintained patrols, suppressing rebellion, striking with surgical precision if needed. Humanity had been betrayed and erased, but we had returned as ghosts, unstoppable and eternal. Engines hummed across the void as humanity's invisible armada moved through liberated sectors. Centuries of betrayal, loss, and exile had forged a perfect force: stealth, precision, and dominance. The galaxy had seen what it meant to erase humanity, and now what it meant to fear it. "Admiral, our presence is secure," Core said. I gazed across the silent stars. "Let the galaxy remember this day. We were erased once, betrayed and forgotten, but now humanity is eternal, invisible, and unstoppable." Cloaked ships glimmered faintly in the darkness, guardians of a galaxy that would never forget the return of the betrayed. Humanity's legacy had been rewritten, forged in silence, vengeance, and invisible supremacy. The end. Thank you for watching AstroMyths. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button and subscribe for more epic sci-fi tales, cosmic mysteries, and mind-bending myths. And if you like this story, or have a myth, mystery, or galaxy you'd like us to explore, drop your ideas in the comments. We're always listening. Until next time, keep your eyes on the stars and your mind open to the unknown.